Hello and blessings. We are in the Foundations of Faith course. My name is Rabbi Boaz Malat. This time we want to deal with the question of where does the people of Israel come from when they are the chosen people? How do we know that Israel is the chosen nation? We learned in previous chapters that faith is a worldview. It is a way of perceiving life by which a person conducts his life in the world. Therefore, we must not leave faith unexamined without clarifying precisely what the correct faith for us is, so that, heaven forbid, we don't discover at the end of our lives that we rushed, traveled, flew, and walked in the wrong direction. It is extremely important. It is the strongest force in the world, that is faith. We learn that faith should indeed guide our lives and not the other way around. We need to consciously bring the Holy One, blessed be He, into our lives, to live constantly with the awareness that God is the creator, the overseer, and the guide. This takes us out of loneliness, frustrations, and pain. It helps us hear God speaking to us through many things in the world. We saw all kinds of practical advice on this, and we also learned that the only way to bring the world to the long-awaited peace, to its unity, is solely through accepting faith in one abstract God who created the world, who oversees the world, who expects the world to live according to the values He set forth, which He gave to the people of Israel. So this time we want to understand and prove that the people of Israel are truly the nation chosen by the Creator for this mission. We'll start with a few aspects of the topic. Let's begin with simpler things from the world, from everyday life. The measure of attitude, the measure of the claim, the measure of public trust, an examination of existence that is not according to the natural order of the world, and an examination that this is indeed what God chose. The first point is the measure of attitude. If we were to examine the degree of people's attitude in the world toward different nations, for indifference or lack of attitude, we would give a score of 0, and for love or hatred, we would give a score of 10. And so we would ask people around the world what they think about the English, the French, the Italian, the American, the Russian. Doesn't matter which nation, right? What would we get from this survey of ours? In my opinion, we'll soon see some examples of this. We would get a very clear, striking result that the people of Israel received the highest score compared to all other nations in the world. A few examples to illustrate. First, in a survey conducted in various places in the United States, passers-by were asked what they thought was the size of the state of Israel. People gave unbelievable answers. Some said it was as big as several states in the US, half the size of the United States, all sorts of statements like that. Why did they give such answers? The explanation is probably simple. There's a lot of attention, a lot of talk, a lot of involvement and interest from the world in the state of Israel. So anyone who judges our size based on the amount of coverage in the global media thinks that Israel is a huge country on earth. On another occasion, in a different part of Europe, a survey asked people which country they thought was the most dangerous to world peace. As Israelis, as Jews, it's unbelievable to us. It sounds completely absurd. How can it be that we, people who love peace, who are good and do acts of kindness and so on, are thought of this way? But in any case, we received the highest score in Europe. In the eyes of Europeans, we are the most dangerous country to world peace. Let's examine a third point. Which country is the most dangerous, the most covered, the most condemned at the UN over the years? You can also check this on the internet. The state of Israel has received the highest percentage of condemnations compared to other countries in the world. There are years when the condemnations that the state of Israel received were more than all the other countries on earth combined. There have been quite a few such years. As if there are no massacres in other countries around the world, no problems, no troubles, only here. It simply reflects the fact that the world is very, very intrigued by and preoccupied with the Jewish people in the state of Israel. Fourth point, if we look at what percentage of coverage Israel receives in the global media, the data shows that about 10% of global media coverage is devoted to the state of Israel. How much of the world's population are we? The Jewish people today make up about 0.2% of the world's population, yet receive about 10% of the coverage. Unbelievable. An enormous ratio, far beyond what we actually are. There's a question about what I did here, which I'm sure some of you are asking, why did you put both hatred and love on the same side? If the whole world loves the Jews, then fine. We understand. But if the world hates the Jews, then it's not. On the face of it, that's not a metric. Is hatred a measure of attitude, of caring? Well, the point is that hatred is also a form of attitude. And moreover, hatred and love can turn into one another in different situations. So if we have no attitude towards someone, we also have no hatred toward them. Meaning, if we have an attitude towards someone, it could be hatred, it could be love. We can hate someone because we expect something from them, but they don't meet our expectations, or because their presence causes us to have expectations of ourselves that weigh on us, that are hard for us to handle. In fact, the strongest kind of hatred is baseless hatred. It's hatred towards someone not because of what they've done, but because of who they are, what they represent. If there is someone who simply by their personality, by their presence, expresses certain values, that alone can already cause hatred toward them. The hatred toward the people of Israel is in part this kind of baseless hatred because of what the people of Israel represent in the world, even before anything they do, say, or how they behave one way or another. One could actually say that the world as a whole recognizes that the people of Israel are different from all other nations. The world is also very curious to know what is happening with these people, what is happening with the country of these people. So the world attitude toward the people of Israel definitely reflects something that is not similar to other nations in the world. It expresses a uniqueness, a special uniqueness that the Jewish people possess. The claim index, this is a different measure, a different perspective from which we want to look at things. If we ask which nations in the world claim that they are the chosen people, is there any other nation in the world that claims it is the chosen people, that God chose them, that God spoke to them, that God gave them a Torah of one kind or another? Is there anything else similar to what the Jewish people claim in the Jewish tradition? Well, if we look into this, we'll see that there is no nation in the world that makes such a claim, that claims it merited as a nation, a revelation in which the creator of the world revealed himself to seem except for the Jewish people. When we have something that several people or groups claim as their own, we need to clarify which of them is correct. But if there is, this one claims something is his, that one claims something is his, doesn't that give us a basis, something that is truly his? Therefore, why should we think that the Jewish people are not the chosen people when they are the only nation whose own narrative truly claims they are the chosen people? Still, even regarding this argument of mine, one could challenge it by asking whether there aren't other nations that claim to be a superior race. Now, I've slightly changed the wording because chosen people is one thing while superior race is a bit different. Once someone actually asked one of the Nazi commanders during World War II, why are you so relentlessly pursuing and killing the Jews? He claimed that there cannot be two chosen peoples. So, according to his view, the Nazis persecuted the Jews because the Jewish people are chosen people, and that did not fit with the Nazi theory. In any case, the Nazis claimed that they were the Aryan race, that they were the chosen race. The Japanese may have claimed something similar, and that was the reason for the alliance between them and the Germans in World War II. In a certain sense, the white European race felt that it had taken over most of the war. But all these examples we've mentioned are of nations that consider themselves to be special peoples. They did not claim to have received a divine revelation. They claimed that their race was of superior quality. They claimed to have certain abilities that others do not possess. To some extent, this could be true. Every nation has certain unique qualities in which it surpasses other nations. It seems that most nations possess a certain pride, a feeling that they have something special that makes them better than other nations. And it's fine that they've developed this. They have talents. God gave each and every nation its own unique talent. Even every individual and community has their own unique talent. But being a chosen people is something else. This means that God chose him, not that he chose himself. The Jewish people do not claim that they chose themselves or that they have some special genes. He claims that God chose him. The creator of the world chose. It's not up to us. The third aspect by which I want to examine the topic is the public trust index. What do I mean? Basically, the question is whether it's possible to fool all the people all the time. Well, there's a saying that's attributed to Abraham Lincoln. He was one of the presidents of the United States, one of the most famous, and he claimed the following: you can fool some of the people all the time. You can also fool all the people some of the time, but you can't fool all the people all the time. That's what he claimed. Is this statement true? What does all the people mean? All the people on the face of the earth, a large portion of the people. And also, what did he mean by all the time? Are you saying that all the time means never at any time? We can't really say it's all the time, because in just a moment there will be another period of time that wasn't included. So we can debate what exactly he meant. But the main principle behind Abraham Lincoln's words is that the more people are involved and the more time passes, the more likely it is that the truth will come to light. And in contrast, the lie will fade away. That, you could say, is the spirit of what he said. I don't agree with him. I brought up his words because there are elements of truth in what he said, but they really need to be examined. How can we know that it is indeed possible to fool many people for a long time? That's the question I'm asking, contrary to what he said. Well, we see that there are all kinds of religions and beliefs in the world that have millions of followers. Seemingly, each one of them could claim Abraham Lincoln's assertion in its favor. Here, there are millions of people in the world who have believed in my system for a very long time, and that's proof that I'm right. But we understand that it can't be that Islam is right and Christianity is right and Buddha is right and so on, even though they all have millions of followers. Why can't they all be right? Because according to each of them, if they are right, if Islam is right, then it claims that all Christians should convert to Islam. If the Christians, they claim that the whole world should be Christian and that their faith is the true one and so on. They disagree on many things. It's clear that not all of them can be right. We see that just because a lot of people hold a certain opinion, have accepted a certain claim or a certain story, that still doesn't mean that this story we have to admit that it's difficult, but it is possible to fool a lot of people for a long time. When does knowledge of faith actually provide us with certainty that things are true? Where can we know something that is truly absolute? Everyone understands that what's written in books doesn't mean anything. You can write whatever you want in books, anyone can print whatever they want. You know, regarding the public, in recent times we also see that just because many people think something, that doesn't mean it's true. That's right. Thank you for the point about the public. You see, even when many people think something is certain, that still doesn't mean it's true. Well, the point is this is important to understand, to reflect on, because it really brings a lot of clarity to life. The knowledge of the masses did not begin with some story that someone told them and they were convinced by, but rather from a tradition passed down to them from their fathers, from their forefathers, regarding historical events that happened to theme events in which many people participate. That is already something certain. For example, there were two people who managed to tell the masses such a story that one of those two walked on water. And the masses accepted the story, even though there is no way to prove its truth, since, according to their account, according to the story, there were only two people there. So how can it be proven that such a thing actually happened? What's to stop two people from making up versions, from telling a lie? Plenty of people do that in the world. So it's clear that this is an unverified story, and there's no reason to believe such stories. But if we take, for example, Alexander the Great, Alexander of Macedon, in today's advanced world, the educated world, the rational world, would anyone doubt that there was a king named Alexander the Great and that this king conquered various countries and did this and that? No one doubts it. everyone is certain of it. We are 100% sure of it, right? Why? We're talking about an event that happened about 2,500 years ago, 2,400 and something years ago, and we accept it as a given. Why? Because many people recounted that this is the historical story. They know it. People met him, experienced him, he conquered their countries, didn't conquer their countries, passed through their lands, and so on and so forth. Historical stories in which many people were present and they passed these stories on. These are things that we already know for certain. These aren't things like the stories of two people of, who knows, someone who walks on water. Well, the story of the people of Israel is the story of an entire nation that for generations upon generations, from father to son, tells its descendants that their ancestors were enslaved to Pharaoh in Egypt, and in a miraculous way, they left Egypt. God himself took them out of Egypt. They crossed through the sea on dry land. And the whole story that everyone knows, they merited prophecy, they merited receiving the Torah at Sinai. Everyone recounted the same things that they heard at Sinai in the Torah. They told of many other miracles that accompanied them on the way from Sinai until they reached the land of Israel. A great many details were told by millions of people from generation to generation throughout all the generations that this is their history. Is it possible to alter, change, distort, or adopt someone else's history as your own? There were those who tried in the world, but they did not succeed. And who can tell a story to someone to make him memorize his own history? Could such a story like that of the people of Israel be just a fabrication by someone who told it to others and they accepted his story? Suppose the people of Israel did not leave Egypt, that there was no such episode in history, then it would have been a different history. People would have told the other true history, and then someone would come along in some generation and say to them, listen, it's not as you tell it, but rather the nation that left Egypt. Who would accept such a story? Why would anyone take it on? And to actually believe in this story, it's very, very binding and obligate. So it's clear that if this were a lie, who would want to believe in a false story that obligates you to so many commitments? It makes demands of you moral, ethical from your own life. So anyone with common sense can understand that you can't lie to people about something like this. And in general, even without the uniqueness of the people of Israel, I think there's no nation in the world where someone could just rewrite their historical narrative, the story of what the nation has gone through. These things are simple. The next point I want to address is that the existence of this nation, not only does it tell a uniquely special historical story, but its very existence has no parallel among other nations in the world. In general, all the nations in the world are land-dependent peoples, people who live in a certain land, have shared experiences there, developed all kinds of culture, this or that, a unique language, and all of this is connected to the land they live on. However, throughout history, there have been numerous instances in which entire nations or distinct groups of people have found themselves forcibly removed from their ancestral homelands, either through direct exile or by being compelled to leave and seek refuge in foreign lands. These exiles often occur as a result of political upheaval, military conquest, religious persecution, or other forms of social and governmental pressure that make it impossible for these populations to remain in their original territory. When such nations are expelled or driven out, they are frequently scattered across various countries, sometimes settling in regions far from their place of origin. This forced displacement can have profound and lasting effects on the identity, culture, and cohesion of the exiled nation, as they must adapt to new environments while striving to preserve their traditions and call themselves Americans, and that's how it is all over the world in every generation and every country. Many nations have wandered from land to land in order to preserve their national identity. And if they were both expelled from their land and scattered across many countries, is it likely in such a situation that they would preserve their previous original identity, given that they were both expelled and dispersed? This is what makes the Jewish people unique. This is what makes the Jewish people unique Jewish. The Romans destroyed the Second Temple and exiled the Jews as slaves to various countries. The people of Israel were scattered throughout the entire world. Despite this, the Jewish people preserved their original identity. After about 2,000 years, we returned to the land of Israel. We rebuilt our lives here as a nation, and we are still rebuilding. Is there anything like this anywhere else in the world? Is there anything similar among other nations? Anything that even resembles this? In fact, anyone familiar with the story of the book of Esther knows that this is what drove Haman the Wicked crazy. Haman could not stand the fact that these people, even though they are scattered, are still one. That's what he says. There is a certain people scattered and dispersed among the peoples in all the provinces of your kingdom. He says this to King Ahasuerus. What does he say? That this is a people who, even though they are scattered, are still one. This is a miraculous existence that this nation has, and it raises the question, how does it exist? How is it possible? The last point I want to address here is that the people of Israel are the chosen people. Not only because the world regards them as special, because they have a unique historical story, and also the background we've seen. It's simply because that's how God chose. The creator of the world chose this way. It's not our will, not our choice. In fact, many Jews throughout history have tried to deny their uniqueness because of all the implications that come with it. But identity is not something that can be self-defined. Some people think that way, imagine it that way, but it's not true. A person who was born Malekan, he chooses to be female. He cannot. He can call himself by different names. He won't truly change his identity. A person born in England, an Englishman, can he just say one day, no, I'm French? You can say whatever you want. People will continue to treat you as English because that's what they see, because that's what you are, that's your culture, that's your heritage. He might be able to immigrate to France and maybe even get citizenship there, and then over time he would become French. But that's not what defines him, is what he thinks, what he imagines for himself. Nations do not choose their own unique characteristics. They were created that way, with their own special traits. The people of Israel are not a nation that chose themselves or decided to be the chosen people. They are a nation that God chose for reasons that the creator of the world decided, and he decided that this nation would receive the Torah, that this nation would be the bearer of his word in the world and would bring the world closer, would lead the world to peace, tranquility, and its own unity. It's important to remember, it's very important to say this because people might hear me and say, what is this arrogance? What is this nation? And so on. A very important point. The mission of the people of Israel is to benefit the world, not to exploit it. The nations we mentioned earlier, who saw themselves as superior to other nations, are the ones who exploited other nations for their own benefit. That's what they did. They took slaves and maidservants from them and so on. The people of Israel did not take slaves and maidservants from other nations. The people of Israel see themselves as a chosen people. First of all, as we said, because that is how God chose. Beyond that, he sees it as a mission. He sees it as a challenge, a commitment, a job. How can we, both as individuals and as a global community, help advance the world towards its true purpose, rather than simply using it for our own benefit or exploiting its resources? This question invites us to reflect deeply on our actions and motivations. Are we contributing to the well-being of the planet and all its inhabitants, or are we prioritizing short-term gains at the expense of long-term sustainability? To truly help the world move forward, we must consider what it means to act with responsibility and care. This involves making choices that support harmony, protect the environment, and foster innovation, rather than depleting resources or causing harm. By being mindful of our impact and striving to give, anyone who has questions about faith or in general can reach out to me or to the channel. My email address is also here. I thank you very much. May you be blessed.